Welcome back to Mental Models Daily, where we explore one mental model each day to help you elevate your daily decision-making. Today, we're diving into a powerful concept that helps us understand the complex relationship between industry and government: regulatory capture. Regulatory capture occurs when government agencies, created to act in the public interest, instead advance the interests of the industries they're charged with regulating. It's when the watchdog starts working for the people it's supposed to be watching. Think of it as a gradual role reversal, where regulators become advocates for the regulated, often without even realizing it's happening. A classic historical example of regulatory capture can be found in the story of the Interstate Commerce Commission, ICC. Created in 1887 to regulate railroads and protect farmers and consumers from monopolistic practices, the ICC gradually shifted its focus. By the early 20th century, it was actively helping railroads coordinate rates and prevent competition. The very commission designed to control railroad power had become its defender. This transformation shows how even well-intentioned regulatory bodies can, over time, begin to identify more with the industries they oversee than with the public they serve. In today's business landscape, consider the case of Acclima, an environmental technology company that's creating new ways to measure air pollution. Rather than accepting the status quo of regulatory capture in environmental monitoring, where industry often controls its own pollution data, Acclima developed independent sensor networks that provide hyperlocal air quality measurements. By making this data accessible to communities, researchers, and regulators alike, they've created a counter-pressure to regulatory capture. They're not just providing a service, they're rebalancing information asymmetry that often enables regulatory capture to flourish. So, how can we apply the concept of regulatory capture in our daily lives? Firstly, we can use it to become more discerning media consumers. When reading news about regulatory decisions, consider whether the perspective primarily reflects industry concerns rather than public interests. Look for diverse sources and pay attention to who benefits from regulatory changes. It's like having a bias detector that helps you identify when public narratives might be shaped by captured institutions. Secondly, we can apply it to our civic engagement. Instead of becoming cynical about regulatory systems, use knowledge of capture mechanisms to participate more effectively. Support transparency initiatives, follow the money in regulatory decisions, and amplify voices that represent broader public interests. It's like having a civic compass that helps you navigate complex governance issues. Thirdly, we can use it to improve organizational governance. Whether in companies, non-profits, or community groups, build structures that prevent internal regulatory capture, where oversight functions become aligned with those they oversee. This might mean rotating audit responsibilities or ensuring independent review boards. It's like having an organizational immune system that prevents conflicts of interest from compromising mission integrity. In conclusion, understanding regulatory capture helps us recognize when systems designed to protect public interests have been compromised. By identifying the mechanisms through which this happens, we can work toward more balanced regulatory frameworks and more effective governance. In a world where the line between public and private interests often blurs, awareness of regulatory capture gives us a lens to evaluate institutional effectiveness. Thank you for joining me today on Mental Models Daily. Until next time, may your oversight be independent, your institutions be balanced, and your public interests be truly represented. For more mental models, please visit mentalmodelsdaily.com or find us on X or Instagram. Our podcast music was provided by the Podcast Host and Alitu, the podcast maker. Find your own free podcast music over at thepodcasthost.com free music.